and carving artisans make a dent in such a huge source of litter? We went to Nairobi to see how Ocean Soul makes art using worldwide waste. This style of sandal is some of the oldest footwear we have, dating back thousands of years. As plastic became cheaper toward the end of the 20th century, foam flip-flops took off. Today, we make over 1 billion of them every year, but most don't last long. That means a lot of flip-flops end up in landfills and waterways. In Kenya, the coasts are often littered with them.
So trashes come from even as far as from India, Philippines to over here. So sometimes we are shocked.
We have a network of collectors that collect flip-flops from our weekly beach cleanup efforts at the coast of Kenya. When you bring the flip-flops to us, we pay you an equivalent of 30 cents US per kilogram.
You'd need to bag more than 25 pairs to make the minimum daily wage of a typical worker in Nairobi. All told, collectors usually bring in about 1 ton of flip-flops per week. That's more than 3,000 sandals. First, the shoes go through a thorough hand wash using water and detergent.
We live in a very hot climate. It takes probably 2 to 3 hours for them to dry, and then our artists will come to pick them and use them to make the sculptures.
For small and medium sculptures, workers die-cut the flip-flops into templates. Then use a non-toxic glue to bind the shoes together.
Remember, we're using a tiny flip-flop, so you have to build up before you're able to carve down. Then our artists will carve them out into a finished product.
The company has around 90 employees. Many of their artists used to make traditional Kenyan wood carvings. But that kind of work has dwindled since the early 2000s when Kenya scaled back logging, which made raw materials harder to come by.
When I used to do woodworking, I never thought of destruction of environment.
These artists say working with a softer material isn't too different from working with wood. The knives and sanding tools are the same, but you do get fewer splinters.
The end product will be a crab. It takes almost 2 hours to complete a piece.
For larger pieces, artists repurpose old insulation from shipping containers as a base and cover them with flip-flops.
And that's why with the bigger sculptures, you'll notice that they have a contour look, while with the smaller ones, there's a stripy look.
Nearly every part of the process is done by hand, and it can take up to 3 months to complete some of the larger pieces.
The only time we use a machinery is when we come here to sand. So after they're done carving with a knife, they'll come here and sit down and use these sanding machines to smoothen the sculptures. I'm gonna walk out of here because it's too noisy.
The company keeps a stock of marine animals, like turtles and whales, in keeping with the clean ocean theme. There's also safari-inspired carvings, like elephants and giraffes, which are the best sellers.
People say that they love them because of their twisted necks, and they also have beautiful eyelashes.
The sandal shavings get repurposed.
We have a shredder in the back that shreds them into smaller pieces like this. And from here, we're able to make mattresses that we donate to a refugee program in northern Kenya.
Next comes a quality control check.
The lady will make sure that, the elephant has 2 ears, 2 eyes, 1 tail. If anything is not right, it's returned back to the artist where they will fix it.
Then the statues are washed one more time before being shipped to their destinations. The plastic and rubber often used in flip-flops poses a unique danger to marine life.
They actually target plastic thinking that is food. The smaller fish, having ingested plastic, tends to be buoyant in that they are not able to dive down into the ocean because of that.
Yes, good day to each and every one of us. Welcome to yet another afternoon learning on our Teach4SDGs. How are you doing this afternoon? I hope your day has been great. Your day has been wonderful. And yes, thank God it's Friday. No school tomorrow, no school next tomorrow until Monday. I hope you are having a great start of your weekend already. Holding every of our section, we appreciate your time. We recognize your decency. We thank you for everything so far. I see people who are joined from different places. I can see audiences from Kenya. I can see people from Namibia. I can see people from Gombe, Nigeria, and a host of every other person that is right with us on this call today. Right on the chat, on the YouTube chat, can you tell us what your experience has been so far on the program? Have you been enjoying it? Has it been worth your time? How has it been? I'm checking with you. I'm right with you on the chat. I see a lot of greetings going on the chat. Yes, that's a good evening to you all. And yeah, someone say it's great to be here again. That means the person has been enjoying every bit of the section. That's fantastic and that's great to hear. Yes, I see more comments coming in. Yes, I see more people joining us. All right, that is fine. That is fantastic. I do understand that many of us have been having quite a great period and moment of learning on this program. Oh, Francis Samuel is saying thank you for the program. Oh, all right. I'm so sorry for that. That's my network in action. It's been a heck in the past maybe 1-2 weeks now. So this evening we have yet another facilitator with us in person of Madam Deborah Edward, who will be taking us on yet another fantastic topic this evening, and that is on circular economy and sustainable waste management. I would just take my time now to quickly introduce Madam Deborah Edwards to us. So Madam Deborah Edwards is currently immersed in the heart of the circular economy movement. She plays a pivotal role in promoting sustainable practices, advocating for resource efficiency, and fostering innovation. Our work in Circular Economy Innovation Partnership, CIP, revolves around building strong connections among stakeholders, from visionary startups to industry leaders, with the ultimate goal of accelerating the transition to a circular and regenerative economy. Amongst Madam Deborah's achievements include spearheading significant initiatives, Circular Oasis Community, which is a peer knowledge sharing platform developing talents in the circular economy ecosystem, and circular products catalog, which is a digital catalog that encourages circular procurement amongst individuals, organizations, through strategic collaboration with renowned organizations and individuals to drive awareness and action in the circular economic space. what a profile. I could see that from what I just read now, you would attest that Madam Deborah has such a profound profile. Could you please welcome her with some emojis and reactions in the chat?
Thank you so much, Marwa. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Funny enough, as you were reading the profile, I was like, are you sure that's that's me that we're talking about here? But I think it's very interesting, to work in the circular economy space. And I really look forward to being able to pass the knowledge that I have gained through my own teachers to the group today. Hello, everyone again. I think I can get started, right? Okay.
Yes, you can just go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen with you. So today I have lined up a presentation. There's a bit of video interlude in between some points. But to keep to time, I might not play every single video, but then I'm sure that at the end of the session, there's a way for you to get the presentations and all that. Okay. So the topic before me today is circular economy and sustainable waste management. Now, before we go into that, what is circular economy, right? What is circular economy? Simply put, circular economy is quite different from linear economy. So in the linear economy, which is what we have a lot of today, we operate a system where we take, make, and waste things. So you take a particular product, probably a raw material from the earth, you make something out of it, and then when you are done, you probably dispose of it, and which is why you see that of course there are landfills and all that. But then circular economy tells you, rather than take, make, and waste, why don't we take, reuse these items over and over again, if possible, turn them to other things, and at the end of the day, rather than just disposing them, what if we take them as raw materials to create entirely new things? Learning a lot from nature as well. But then I'll leave this video to, quickly share a bit about what circular economy is, and then I'll go right into my presentation. So you just kindly confirm that you can hear and see the audio assistance. Okay.
Climate change is a given.
Okay, thank you.
For decades, our booming consumption of natural resources and the use of raw materials are on a dangerous and unsustainable track. The Earth's ecosystems have started to show signs of serious stress. Climate change, biodiversity losses, or land degradation are just some examples. Human activity cannot continue on the same pathway in a linear economy. In short, the linear model that became dominant after the first industrial revolution is not sustainable, and we are using more resources than we and the planet can regenerate. The necessity to conserve Earth's resources seems to have been lost. There's no denying the benefits in terms of unparalleled variety and consumer choice, but there's now general consensus that change is needed to avoid permanent damage to the planet and its limited resources. The circular economy is said to be a solution and an opportunity to provide better services to consumers, while also tackling core sustainability challenges, resource scarcity, and environmental degradation. In a circular economy, raw materials are used efficiently and for as long as possible. When material and product loops are closed, raw materials can carry on being reused. In the best case, no further sourcing of raw materials needs to happen anymore. This benefits both the environment and the economy. Circular economy supports sustainable development by aiming to secure the resources to sustain our current and future generations. This is achieved by minimizing resource inputs and waste, emission, and energy leakage of products over time using 4 distinct strategies: narrowing, closing, slowing, and regenerating resource loops. These strategies are outlined as narrowing, decreasing material and energy use per product; closing, ensuring both production material and resources and the finished product can be and are recycled; slowing, consuming less and using products for longer over time; regenerating, cleaner loops and organizations contributing to leaving the environment in a better state than how it was found. The different circular strategies present promising opportunities to build more resilient economies and societies, and organizations are already applying these strategies. For example, an organization has developed a process that is sustainable, biodegradable, and chemical-free. The idea is to avoid plastic and use agricultural residues to make sustainable products, such as disposable tableware. The residues are turned into self-binding fibers that do not require massive use of chemicals and water, creating a concept that can be applied almost everywhere. Another example for a circular strategy is the one of Kalundborg, a city in Denmark. The Kalundborg Eco-Industrial Park is an industrial symbiosis network in which companies in the region collaborate to use each other's byproducts and otherwise share resources. Whatever definition you choose, a circular economy is the alternative to the linear economic system that still predominates. Circularity offers a win-win situation with potential benefits and rewards at many levels. Circular solutions open the access to new markets, and value is created through potential new circular products and services. Services that often also generate higher margins in comparison to resource-heavy offerings. Circular economy is a way of being ahead of the curve, avoiding future regulatory pressure, reducing regulatory risks, and increasing the trust of consumers and business partners. And it is a chance to keep up with general sustainability trends and requirements and become a front runner in a globally growing market.
All right. Okay, so I'm usually very, very grateful to organizations that, take their time to create visual materials. I think of them as learning aids, visual materials that are able to explain the concept of not just circular economy, but a lot of concepts, because it sort of makes it simpler for almost anyone to understand. And of course, it makes it fun and interesting. So if you enjoyed that video, the way it was arranged, the kind of graphics that were used, the fact that it was animated and all, just, kindly leave a comment there. I think that's something that a lot of companies in Nigeria could stand to begin to do so that people can learn more about circular economy. So before that video, I already established that, circular economy tackles waste. So if someone walks up to you, say your student or somebody that you just see on the road, of course, they may not know what circular economy is, but you want to explain it to them that, okay, what is circular economy? You'll tell them that it is an economic model, that is designed to minimize waste as much as possible and maximize resource efficiency. That's just it. Circular economy is designed to minimize waste and maximize resource efficiency. So something is going in and something is going out. Something is coming up and something is going down. So as much as possible, we want waste to go down. Now, the ripple effect of reducing waste means that the resources that we have in abundance, everything that we met in nature, that nature has to offer us, is kept, at its optimal strength for as long as possible. For example, we have people that manufacture books, and books are made from trees. Yes, it's very lovely to have books. We've been reading books. There are over 100 billion books in the world. But then we need to also think about it. If we keep on falling trees to produce books, what happens? There's going to be a problem. So it means that there are companies today that begin to say, okay, the books that are already being in use, how do we ensure that when they are being used by whoever is using them, we do not just throw them out? Of course, books are biodegradable, so they always, reduce back to their molecular form that can put back into nature. But then how can we ensure that we don't just waste it? It doesn't just end up in landfills. It's not just decayed. You have people that do donations. I know a couple of people have used secondhand books before, okay books. We have people that have libraries and then hand these things down over and over to the next generation. Those simple actions that they are carrying out, those simple things that they are doing actually contribute to circular economy. They are practices that help, to minimize waste and ensure resource efficiency. The resource there being the plant life that is being spared from being used. And of course, there are other companies that go on to say, okay, these trees, these books, let's recycle them and make other things out of them. It would probably surprise a couple of people to know that, okay, there is tissue paper that is made from recycled paper. You know, there are materials that are made from recycled paper. There are other books, you know, scented papers, different things that are made from recycled paper. There is an endless abundance of things that can happen when we begin to think, how can I minimize waste and maximize resources efficiently? Now, this diagram that is showing on your screen shows two kinds of streams. The first stream here, the part with the blue, you know, coloring, is the technical material flow. And the second part is the biological material flow. Everything on the technical material flow, these are things that they do not decompose easily. So essentially, we need to keep them as long as possible in the system, because once you throw them out, they are not going to reduce themselves. You need to probably help them to reduce themselves or help them to change shape. Let me give you an example. I'm sure a couple of us have phones. You know, it could be as simple as a Nokia phone. Have you observed that you can keep a phone in your bag? If you say you want to be stingy and you don't want to give it to anybody, even after a sport, you can keep it in your bag for as long as 10 years. And it will not change shape. So long as maybe other elements such as water does not come near it and things like that, it will preserve its original quality for as long as possible. That's because those things do not naturally decompose. They do not naturally change shape. And you know that when we throw those things out, because they don't change shape on their own, you know, without help, it means that we are contributing to polluting the environment. So what then can we do to ensure that rather than us having to throw things out at the end of the day, what can we do? Now, in circular economy, there are several processes. There's the first one that you can say share. Circular economy encourages you to share. So rather than you just owning an item and not using it, why not share with someone? And I know that a lot of us practice this already. As educators who are going to, you know, teach the next generation about circular economy, this is something that we should encourage as much as possible. Sharing. Yes, it's a moral, you know, a good moral character. You share your things. This one, we're not even talking about food items. And you can actually turn it into a business model. And people have done that already. So you have businesses that take things like canopies and rental materials, and then they rent them out. That is a simple process of sharing. So I don't need to use it all the time, but you might need it. Pay me a token, and then we can exchange it for a period of time. Then you bring it back to me. Reuse, that's the next one. Reuse here. Reuse or redistribute. You are done using it for a period of time. Let's reuse it. I think I like where, you know, this phone swap idea came about. Now you can exchange your phone with a little money for another phone. And then that one is being sold to somebody else. That's actually a circular model. Reuse or redistribute. Then there is refurbish and remanufacture. I don't know, but phones seem to be one of the easiest because I guess they've set up a system that makes it easy to explain. So it's almost like they've thought about all the options. So we don't come and say, phone companies, you are not circular, go away. So refurbish and remanufacture. So a lot of times you would hear, oh, they recalled this item because when it went out into the market, it wasn't good enough. So we had to recall these items. Yes, we recall these items. So what now happens afterwards? We adjust what needs to be adjusted, take out what needs to be taken out, and then we couple it together and we put it back in the market. Of course, not everybody likes refurbished item. They are scared of it. They are wondering, oh, why? But then again, when you think about it, it's wisdom to not just throw it out, but then repair it and ensure that, okay, this thing gets into somebody's hands. And most of the time, these refurbished items are sold for less the price than the original price. These different steps, you know, are a part of, you know, a way to ensure that materials are used for as long as possible. There's recycle. People often think, oh, circular economy is about recycle. Not necessarily. Sometimes recycling can be the very last thing you think about when it comes to circular economy, ensuring that you have gone through different processes before you get to the circular economy. Now, let's leave the technical side and quickly talk about the biological side. I explained that when I talked about trees. These things can decompose. What about waste material? What about food waste? They also fall under the biological material flow. These particular things, they are either renewable or at the end of the day, they go back to their natural state. So we like to call nature regenerative because nature always has a complete circle. It is always circular. How do I mean? You know, there is a food chain in nature. It's almost like everybody gets eaten, sadly. But then that in itself is circular. So we have bugs or we have ants, and there are birds that eat ants. After that, we have animals that feed on birds. Those animals eventually get fed on by either omnivores, that's people that eat probably plants and animals at the same time. Eventually, those that eat animals eventually pass on, and then, you know, it goes back into nature, a complete circular loop. So there are other forms of biological material flow. We can turn food waste, for example, to biogas. We can turn waste materials, you know, to power. There is something called waste to energy. Yes, there are a lot of systems that make it possible, but it indeed is possible. I hope like I'm able to communicate with you. If you are getting me, please in the YouTube chat, you know, you can signify or say that, yes, you get me. If you don't get me, you can drop questions. And I think towards the end or at the end of my presentation, we can tackle some of those questions and probably leave you with a good answer. Now, what are the principles of circular economy? So what are the things you should think about when you think, oh, circular? The first one is designed for longevity and durability. Everything at all and anything at all should be designed to resist wear and tear. You might not be a producer, right? You know, you are the one taking products that are being produced. So it's paramount that even you as a consumer needs to think for the producer to say, this particular item, will it be durable? And I love Nigerians. Nigerians, we want value for our money. If it will not last, we're not interested. So kudos to us already on that part. But that in itself is actually a principle of circular economy. It forces, you know, producers to begin to think, how can I design in a way that is sustainable? How can I design in a way that thinks of everything and not just one thing? Right? And it also forces them to collaborate because some of these things you cannot do on your own. So no man is indeed an island. Resource efficiency. You will hear this often and often. When you're thinking about circular economy, you need to think about it. How do I minimize waste and ensure that I am not impacting my environment? How do I ensure that I am not extracting all the time, but rather I am using what is already available in nature? Then circular business model. The thing I explained to you, that diagram that I tried to illustrate, many of those things you saw there, sharing, leasing, republishing, those particular different things, they all fall under circular business model. There's also circular inputs. You use waste that is gotten from all these items to make new products as a part of your business model. That is a circular business model. And there are a couple of companies that I will show you as we go on that do that very, very well. We like to call them circular business model, and we have worked with them. Right. There are other principles. Waste reduction. We've talked about this a lot. You can't talk about resource efficiency without talking about waste reduction. Regenerate nature. You can take a cue from nature to ensure that, okay, every single thing we are doing is closing the loop. It goes back into the complete circle. Nobody is cut off because where you have the weakest chain, there tends to be a problem. And then there is also the principle of consumer awareness and engagement. It's not enough to say circular economy without engaging everybody. So the producer has a responsibility to engage, to educate the consumer to say, okay, these are the benefits of what I have created. I need you now to be responsible. This does not mean that you don't make products and services for profit. You can't do that. You can make it for profit and at the same time, make it for nature, right? It might seem that, oh, you cannot achieve that. You know, we need to keep buying. We need to encourage people to buy so that we keep on having money. No, you need to think outside the box and say, okay, what other services can I attach to this particular one that I have so that I generate more? An example is somebody who makes ceiling tiles from paper waste. Yes, paper waste, and in fact, agricultural and textile waste. What this young man does is that he takes paper waste from a top company that produces maybe drinks, you know, It puts it together with agricultural waste and some fiber from, fashion or textile waste, puts it together through a process of course, scientific mixing not magic, of course. He puts it together and he's able to make a ceiling tile, made from waste. And this ceiling tile is tested, because sometimes, people are very quick to say, oh, I've created something, that's the end. Everybody come and buy. He tests it out to ensure that it is approved by the right authorities. And then that is one side, he sells these things. But then he's like, okay, people will probably buy these ceiling tiles once and that's the end. What else can I do for them? I'm going to help them install it. If there's a problem or a leakage, I add the service where we come and we check it out or we fix it for you. If you're ready to throw it off or you want to change the ceiling design in your house, don't just throw it away. Give it back to us. We will turn it back into our input. Now, in so doing, he's closing the loop with his business, but he's also trying as much as possible to engage them and educate them that this particular product, it doesn't just end up as waste. You can use it again and again. What are the benefits of circular economy then? We've talked about it a lot, and I'm sure you've heard me mention at least 3 areas now. We've talked about the environment, we've talked about the economy, maybe not so much, but we will. And then, of course, there are social benefits. For the environment, I can't say it enough, energy efficiency, resource depletion, and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. When we produce things, we often release harmful gases into the air. The industrial space is it can be a very, very scary place, because to produce new things, you are always utilizing a lot of resources and you are always releasing gases into the air, which can affect, the environment, which is already affecting the environment. So circular economy, because you do less, so you do less of creating from scratch and do more of utilizing what you have, you reduce the amount of gas emissions that is required. Minimizing resource depletion. I think we've covered enough on environmental. Let's quickly move to economical. What is the benefit to the economy? Before now, I'm sure that many people did not think about it. Let's use the very common one. Let's use plastic recycling, because it's still a part of circular economy. So before now, I would say that, a lot of people did not know that you could make money from plastic waste. So from gathering plastics, putting it together and, sending it back to the off-takers, aggregators, who eventually will get it to the producers, and these things will be recycled to make other bottles. People didn't know that was available to them. But that came and then unlocked a door, business opportunities created. We also have, let's say, charcoal briquettes. So we have clean cooking energy. Yeah. Or clean tech, I think it's still clean tech energy. So clean cooking energy. We have people that take waste from agriculture, and then they have a process where they bind them together and they make something you can use as a fire starter, so that you do not have to fell trees down. By the production process down to the product getting back into the hand of the consumer, there is a lot of opportunity for businesses to grow there. And it also creates job opportunities for people. So you can actually join the value chain, either as a producer, as a middleman, as a retailer, because at the end of the day, it is still a business. It still requires some business strategy to get it out there into the market. Yes, it is a unique, innovative product, but it is still a business. So people will still need to be employed to work on these things. So the fact that, it is an innovation and creating opportunities means that, yes, indeed, circular economy is benefiting the economy of a country, especially when they can encourage their people to patronize locally made items. And that is something that we try to do with our work with circular procurement, circular catalog, and all that. There is also increased innovation and reduced cost. Yes, it seems expensive to make circular products. Why? Because there is a lot of sourcing involved. Sometimes the machineries are born, out of people's minds. People sit down and think, how can I get this done? Because it is in the initial stage, it seems expensive. However, if we are able to increase the demand for those products, how? Raising awareness, we are in turn able to ensure that, okay, the cost over time is reduced, and a lot of people get to benefit from this. So these are two ways in which circular economy is beneficial to the economy. Then we have social benefits. When you take care of nature, when you do things the right way, it spells well-being, good well-being for the community, for people. When we reduce the amount of gases that we are emitting, you have natural air, you have, great water quality, etc., etc. I'd like to even draw a picture. Do you know why many people like to go to the village? So I had the opportunity to speak to someone, and he said that because the air is fresh in the village and it's not fresh in the city. That is, he gets to sleep well in the night because technically the city is alive 24/7. So he prefers, going home probably, during celebratory periods to just relax. But now imagine if we are able to, take the urban areas and turn them into a very, very wonderful circular hub, meaning that every single thing is well thought out, from industry to the facilities that are available. Everything is, intended to be zero waste in nature. What would happen over time? Even the urban spaces will be able to get clean energy and it will be fine. So the the health aspect will be taken care of, as well as the community well-being will be taken care of. There is also job creation. It's a social benefit. Creating jobs for people through probably repair, technical knowledge is important. We have people that know how to weave. I don't know if some of you have heard of somebody, but this woman weaves bags, shoes, even clothes items from pure water nylon. It's a skill that she adapted from a knowledge that she had of weaving fabrics before, right? Ashoki material. And then she was like, we can use pure water nylons. We can use any kind of nylon to create this particular thing. In so doing, she created a new space. Not only that, she's able to train other people to eventually take up roles in these same things and do the same as well. These are just, different benefits of circular economy. Is there anyone I missed that you can think of? Just put it down in the chat. Let everyone get to see them and read them and see what you are thinking about circular economy. Case studies. Yeah, we have a couple of businesses doing circular economy. You can write it down. You can take a screenshot of this page. You can look them up. I encourage you to do so if you are curious. One of the things I have learned is that whenever you think of an idea, no matter how strange, type it in Google, try and find out if anybody is doing it or doing close to it. Let your curiosity about these things lead you. You might eventually stumble on an innovative idea yourself, or even stumble on an opportunity to partner or improve somebody else's businesses and still make room for yourself. So in the food space, we have coconut jam. They make a lot of things from the coconut plant. For them, there is nothing that is waste. We have AIIDEV Glass. They do glass recycling. So glass scraps that you find all around, they recycle it and make unique one-of-a-kind pieces. Every single one is unique because, of course, they are taking recycled materials, putting it together and shaping it up. We have packaging. These people look at, how can I take banana leaves? How can I take water hyacinth? How can I make it into a packaging material that we can use? You heard through the video, there was someone that there's a company that says, okay, I'm going to make disposable plates, not of styrofoam, right? Because of course, styrofoam has been banned in both Lagos and Ibadan now, but this is a plant-based material. Once you are done eating, with this item, when you dispose it, it will biodegrade, go back into nature. So we have nothing to worry about. That's a beautiful one. Construction, eco-circular solution. That was what I talked about, that they do ceiling tiles. Quad loop energy. They make solar systems out of e-waste. E-waste is electronic waste. Transportation, think bikes. They also make, these ones make transportation e-bikes from e-waste. So they actually cover quite a large range. We have fashion, closet sales. They use textile waste to make unique items. There are fabulous clothing items, designer materials that you can get from them. When I say designer, I don't mean all those famous brands abroad. I mean that Designer simply means someone that sits and designs. You eventually build a brand around it. And this is what these people are doing with sustainable fashion. Interior decoration, items in your house can be made from materials that are reusable, that are often considered as waste to some people. Agriculture, the list is endless. So almost every sector has how it can benefit from circular economy, right? Now we're going to quickly move to sustainable waste management. Yeah, that's the second part. And eventually we're going to blend the two together. Sustainable waste management, circular economy. Now, what is sustainable waste management? Simply how you manage waste. How do you handle it? How do you treat it? How do you dispose of it? A lot of times, I know that there was a period in human life when people didn't know that dirty used to make other people sick or make them sick. Like dirty waste. When you put things anyhow, it can cause negative effects, not just to the environment, but to your health. Right? I don't know if anybody can relate with this, but when your space is really messed up, like when your space is cluttered, there is so much, there is your book here, your biro here, your teddy bear here, everything all around you. You can't even think because somehow that has an effect on your mental health. So it means that even when things are not intended to be waste, when we don't treat them properly, somehow, they turn out to be waste. Somehow, they affect us mentally, they affect us in our health, they affect the environment. Large scale, they affect the society. So what is sustainable waste management? It is simply a systematic process, of responsibly handling waste, treating it, and disposing waste material. And there are a lot of different types of waste. There are so many. There is your household waste, and then there is medical waste. There is waste from construction. The list is endless, but then let's continue as we see more of this. Now, waste hierarchy. Initially, when I talked about it, circular economy, I mentioned something around the technical material flow, and this is just to draw your minds to ensure you are following me, that in that material flow, you do a lot of reusing, you do a lot of refurbishing, you keep on going round in the circle. Now we've come to waste hierarchy. There is actually a hierarchy for managing waste. And the first one is what? Reduce, prevent it. It's very possible for you and I to begin to educate others to say, okay, reducing it is one of the best ways. Essentially, reducing it is make sure that it doesn't happen at all. Ensure that from the very beginning, there is no waste. And one of the things we've actually adopted in our organization is that, you know how you get souvenirs, and this thing used to pain people. Now you get souvenirs when you go out to parties, you get things that you probably will never use. We decided rather than doing that and spending money on things that people will not use, broom and packer that they don't know what they are going to use it and do. And fan that, yes, okay, no, I have nothing against hand fan because if you can see me very well, I'm sweating. So yes, sometimes hand fan is needed. That one I would advocate for. But there are items that people don't need. And we give them out a lot as souvenirs. I'm not saying organizations should not give things out, but you as a person, as an individual, when you know you do not need it, what can you do? You can turn it down. And you can encourage other people to turn it down. If you feel it's rude or impolite to do such a thing, what do? If you are picking it up, you think of who actually needs this thing that I can give it to. Because sometimes you do not need it. So why say yes to everything when you can, stop it at the source and reduce the amount of things that you take? Now that's on a consumer level. What about packaging? You buy something, it comes in 17 different nylons. Why? So producers have a responsibility to ensure that, okay, let us package as less as possible because that means that there will be less waste for people to generate in their homes, right? That's on reduce. Then there is reuse. All right, you have some materials, you have some items that you have gotten. What next can you do with those items or those materials? What you can do is reuse them. Look for how you can convert them into something beautiful. I like what they teach, children a lot in schools. And I know that that was not what they were intending to teach them, right? But with arts and crafts, they tell kids to bring some things together and they make something out of it. I was going to give the example of pencil case. So growing up then, I used to have these containers, all these beverage containers, the purple one and the green one. I'm not advertising anybody's brand today, right? You now have those containers, and teachers in their classrooms would have these containers on their table, and all the children's pencils or biros will be there. And there are some kids who might find it fun to carry these containers in their own bags and keep them there. Those are simple examples of reusing. We even reuse plastic nylon, like nylon bags. When you buy something, some people will rather throw it away, but some of us know how to keep these things over and over again to reuse them. These are on a basic level. There are bigger things that you can reuse for as long as possible. That is the second thing in waste hierarchy. There is recycling. Recycle it. Paper can be recycled, plastic can be recycled, glass can be recycled, metal can be recycled. Recycle it is another part of waste hierarchy. And then we also have recovery. How can we recover energy? And fantastic is waste to energy. We can produce heat, we can produce electricity from the combustion of waste material. So it is endless what we can do with waste if we know how to handle it properly. If everything else has failed, then we can say, okay, let's dispose it. Let's dispose it into modern landfills, not the landfills where you just dump things and nothing happens to them over the years. But, landfills that are well thought out to say, okay, what can we do with them? Or in fact, how can we reduce the production of things we don't need to the barest minimum? Now, what else are some strategies? Buy in bulk. Use reusable containers, avoid single-use products. These are things that at this point, I believe we should know. But if we don't know them, let's begin to sing it to ourselves. I will buy in bulk. I will reuse reusable containers, or I will use reusable containers, and I will avoid single-use products. Women in the house, we know how to buy in bulk. I hope we know how to buy in bulk. Buying in bulk means you are buying a lot of, like, the same item that you will use probably for 3 months. You buy it at once. It saves you time, it saves you energy, and it also saves resources, because sometimes it's more affordable than buying a single one over time. How do you achieve this? Proper planning. Every single individual should know how to plan. It helps you to know how to really manage not just yourself, but the environment where you operate as well. Why? If we can reuse landfill waste, if we can conserve resources, if we can reduce the environmental impact of these things, life would actually be so much better. A lot of things that are happening today would not happen as it were. Let's talk about types of waste. And yes, I am checking time, so I'll try to round up as soon as I can. Let's talk about types of waste. And I hope you are enjoying the session. Okay, there's a chat. 5 minutes for the presentation. Awesome. Thank you for that. Okay. Now let's talk about types of waste. I mentioned this already, so I'm going to run through this. Municipal solid waste. These are wastes that are generated in your house, your businesses, and your institutions. These are everyday items. How do we handle this waste? Number one is to separate from the source. So separate it from the source for recycling. Is it paper? Is it plastic? Is it glass? Separate it, because all these things have different uses that they can be used for. If it is food waste, do the composting. Either you turn it into fertilizer that you can use, or find somebody who needs it for fertilizer and hand it over to them as well. Yes, you can actually gather food waste and use for something else. We have biodegradable waste. We've talked about this already. Organic waste, it can be decomposed by natural processes, and then it can be used, to enrich the soil. Non-biodegradable waste, it takes a long time to burn. So what we can do is recycle the materials, or as much as possible, do energy recovery through waste to energy incineration. Plastic waste, same thing. Source reduction. Don't use single-use plastics, recycle as much as possible, and then also have initiatives. Don't forget the part where we said educate the consumer. So educate yourselves. So long as you're a consumer, we need to be educated that there are alternatives to plastic, and of course there are biodegradable alternatives that you can use instead of relying on just one. Textile waste. you have scrap of clothing. Is it that you are handing it over to somebody who needs it, or we are recycling textile materials? We have a fantastic innovator who we just learned about. She now takes, fabrics and makes them into fiber. She has a machine that makes them into fiber. And this fiber can either be, used to create furnitures and fittings, or even woven to create new textile. So there are different ways you can handle textile waste other than just throwing it away. We have e-waste. E-waste is one of the most dangerous waste. Why? Because if you do not use or dispose of this waste properly, something might happen. And under e-waste, there are different types of waste. So under e-waste, that's your electronics, you will find metals and you will still find plastics, right? So these items, as much as possible, need to be taken apart carefully, usually by authorized recycling facilities. We have construction and demolition waste. This is waste gotten from construction sites or renovation sites. These are concrete, wood, metals. For those of us who have seen how they build houses, a lot of times people try to incorporate the waste materials, as filling for foundations and all that. But there are also other ways that they can be disposed of. There are people that actually collect this kind of waste and use them for other things, or throw them in designated landfill. Agricultural waste, this is waste from food, straight up composting or, making of manure, but sometimes it needs to be controlled. We have medical waste. There are people that actually do collect medical waste and, ensure that it doesn't get into the hands of the wrong people. So things like syringes, knives or scalpels. Anything that is, sharp, that can be infected with something that can infect another person, there are ways to go through it. Not everybody should have access to this waste. There are incinerators and there are ways to safely dispose this waste. It's important to ensure that everyone is adhering to these things, even if they are just chemists that you see that do these things in their shops. There are ways and strategies to handle them. What are the other ways that you can think of that I probably did not mention? You can mention them, within yourselves, and probably I get to see it as well. Now, as I round up, I'm going to try and tie the relationship between circular economy and sustainable waste management. What essentially is that? In circular economy, we found out that we're trying to minimize waste as much as possible and ensure that we have or maximize resource efficiency. In sustainable waste management, we're trying to ensure that we handle waste properly, we dispose it properly. Can you see the relationship between the two? One ensures we try as much as possible to minimize waste. As we're on our journey to minimizing that waste, the other one is ensuring that we handle the waste properly so that it doesn't come back to bite us in the back. So we have shared objectives. Both of them actually have shared objectives. Both of them intend to create a more sustainable and resilient economy. We have waste is actually a resource. Depending on how you dispose of it, it can actually be a resource. It can be reclaimed, it can be reused, and it can be repurposed. And then designing for circularity. If at the end of the day, we want to actually do away with waste, it means that from the very beginning, as we are conceptualizing ideas, we have to design for circularity. We need to ensure that we are designing to have long life. We are thinking about what happens when the consumer who buys it is done with it. And even as far as how does it even get to them? Is it logistically sound to go through some processes to get it done? All right. Collaboration and education. Everyone has a role to play. You have a role to play. As you receive the knowledge, you can pass the knowledge down. You don't need to know so much. You can know as little as you know and still share that knowledge with your people. I think at this point, I am actually done. Thank you so much. I really hope you enjoyed the session. I was not too fast and all that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Edwards. It was a really interesting session. It's just because you will not be able to see the comments for the reactions of the participants, but I can see them. I see comments as yes, it's very interesting, good delivery, so educating, really interesting session, very educative session. In fact, it's just all buzzing in the chat on YouTube live. So thank you very much. I had a nice time myself. It was a moment of learning. I love the practicality. I'm impressed by the examples that you mentioned. I am sure that even our audience that would go on to make further findings about the possibility of working with such organizations and all of that. And of course, your name is all over in the live chat. Thank you, Madam Edward. Thank you very much, Madam. And yeah, that is just it. We really appreciate you. Thank you very much. So this is the time when we want to take questions. If you have questions for our very amiable facilitator, this is when you want to drop your questions so that she would quickly be able to attend to the questions. Felix said he enjoyed the presentation, Madam. Reasonable speed with clarity, formidable. Oh, Pauline is saying this is something totally new. Such an enlightening section. So educating. I enjoyed. Oh man, this is so great.
Okay,
so
thank
good. All right. So I'm just waiting on questions from the participants, and maybe in the next 1-2 minutes, if we do not have questions coming, of course, we'll just assume that we're nearing the end of the session. But I'm hoping there will be questions arising from this kind of presentation. Of course, I'm very sure it has been a very qualitative presentation, and of course, it is superb. Okay, it's so much of appreciation going on the charts. Oh,
okay. So maybe okay, there's a question. I was going to say maybe if there are no questions, they should write something they took away. So that helps, because you might not have questions. You could do what did you take away, or what are you going to run with when you go home or something. That could help.
Good. I think because they are educators, and they feel like we should not be offended that there are no questions. So
no problem. There are no questions. That's fine.
Someone is, there's so much comments of thanks for your time. What a wonderful class. The lesson was well delivered. I love the simplicity. Great comments. But yeah, there's a question here now about Felix. Felix is asking that, what do you think would be recommended for waste management for used car oils? Yeah.
Okay, that's an interesting one. For used car oils. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not really familiar with the automobile space, but then I do know that I've had someone who says that the car oil that was used can actually be reused. So I think if they're very careful about it, it can be used as fuel. Fuel, not necessarily for the car, but probably for please don't quote me, for like starting like a fire starter, because it's oil at the end of the day. So it can be used that way. But I also know that some auto mechanics actually help use this oil, depending on how far gone it is, to help other cars, for people who don't have all the resources, start theirs. So you might want to look into that. I know, so off the top of my head, can actually be used in a controlled environment as a fire starter, but also it is actually still used on other cars before it is finally disposed of as well.
Yeah, I agree. I so agree with you, madam. Another person is asking, this is Mukama from Uganda. So his question is, how can we manage chemicals in secondary schools? I think maybe what he's trying to ask will be chemical wastes. So probably, as a scientist or a science-based teacher, you understand that we do so much of experiment, put this and that together and all of that. So maybe he's trying to ask a question on how well to manage, the end of life of such wastes in secondary stores.
Okay, so I don't have an answer to that. Remember when I said something that we should design with the end in mind? So I think it's a very, very rich and interesting question that you've asked. One that I feel like should be answered somehow. But then since I don't have an answer, I would say maybe we think about it. When we've mixed the chemicals and all these things about chemicals, it needs to be controlled. So it needs to be tested and verified before you can hand it over to someone else. So what if we say that at the end of maybe probably mixing, I'm not even a science student, probably mixing 2 different chemicals together, the end product is something that can be used again, right? And another thing I want us to keep in mind is that at the end of the day, we eventually are still going to waste stuff. Yes, please don't get it wrong. We eventually are still going to waste stuff because not everything can actually, or has, like, not everything has a solution that has been discovered that, oh, this is it. Let's just turn it into something else. No, not everything has that kind of capacity just yet. So for things like chemicals, I would say probably stick to like what is stipulated as to how you can dispose it. And then if you are qualified or trained and you have the proper gear, you can experiment within reasonable and safe environments what you can do next. It will be a lot of hypothesis and testing, but you probably will eventually find an answer.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Because it's a gathering of educators, readily there's so much recommendations and answers going on in the chat.
Okay.
For the question about the oil and stuff, someone is already recommending that can be used on motorcycles aside engine oil. Someone else is mentioning that it could be used in manual gearbox in trucks. While someone mentioned one other, I think I can relate well with, like it says it can be used as termite killer, which I think it works so well somehow. So I will be taking the last question now because of our time, and of course I think we would be able to attend to further questions on the chat sometimes later. So okay, someone is asking a question on medical waste. So the person that's a Pauline Banda. She said, how is waste management from medical waste such as drugs as well as aerosols can be managed? So just for that's a question. But I have another one that I feel maybe we could just put together with that somehow. So Abdullah Mohammed is asking how you can apply this circular economy in the primary level, especially while dealing with children. So those are just the last questions we'll be taking this evening. And of course, we would attend to every other question on the live, I think.
Okay, so thank you so much. So for the question on medical waste, I think I get that a lot. So for medical waste, one of the things I've learned is that so there are prescribed standards for operations for medical waste. Usually they have an incinerator. Sometimes they have I won't say a pile, it's usually an incinerator. So sometimes they have a section of the hospital where they gather these waste items and eventually burn them. So that's like the work of the incinerator. So that's how far I know about medical waste, especially things like syringes, cutting boards, and so on. However, I think I am also curious to know for expired drugs. I don't think anybody asked, that was not the question, but for expired drugs, what really happens to it? But then I'll go find out by myself. I'll maybe come back and we'll have a conversation.
About an assignment for the educators.
Yes.
Maybe we would say for someone who is able to supply us an answer, maybe they get a one-on-one with Madam Edwards.
Oh, that would be nice. I don't mind.
Okay, so let's have it as an assignment then.
Okay, yeah. So that's awesome. Then the other question about like children. So yes, for children, how do they learn about circular waste? I think it's all about simplifying everything you've learned today. So for children, essentially, what you're teaching them is that we can actually live in a world where there is no waste. So even if you're in primary school, simple things as don't waste your food items. I think those are the values we are already trying to teach them. But we now need to make them see that it goes beyond just the classroom. So items at home, and they can in turn even teach their parents a thing or two. The same way hand washing became a thing where you teach a child how to wash his hand, and then eventually he goes home and he's like, I won't do anything without washing my hands first. Same thing for waste products. You can teach a child to say, okay, do not use single-use plastic. So require that mommy and daddy also don't always buy
So sorry. I think we lost our facilitator to the network. However, we'll just give about maybe a minute. Let's see if we'll be lucky to have her back. Of course, almost each and every one of us can attest to the network challenges that we've been facing for about 1-2 weeks now. So let's just hold on for a little while if she's able to join us back. However, we readily have an assignment which I'm so looking forward to, who is going to make the best recommendation of what other usefulness we can attach to expired drugs. Maybe from here it could be a start of an innovation or a discovery for one of us on this call this evening. And yes, I think it's also be fair. Already I can see some of you, doing this on the chat, saying things that you have learned and things you put into practice after today's section. So I think I would want to see it more. Okay, someone is already answering that some of the medical materials are recyclable and people working in medical fields are aware of that. Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. So I can already see a lot of takeaways being dropped on the chat. I think I would want more of that to come in. And yeah, somebody already pinned the assignments on the chat. That's fantastic. VJ, hey, thank you very much. So I'm not too sure that we are, maybe the network is going to allow us to have Madam Edwards back. Of course, she has given us a very great delivery this evening. Almost each and everyone on the call had enjoyed the session and had one or two things to learn. So because this is a live, I'm sure she would see this afterwards. On behalf of AIIDEV Africa, we want to say a special thank you to Madam Deborah Edwards for the amazing section that she has delivered to us this evening. And special thanks also to the very consistent and amazing educators that we have on the program that's been joining us, taking our time out of a busy schedule to attend these sections. We recognize you. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. Of course, while it is a personal development, we thank you for being a part and allowing AIIDEV to be a part of your success story while learning on the Sustainable Development Goals. So our next session will be for next Thursday by 4 p.m. GMT +1. And like always, we would appreciate that we all are online to enjoy yet another amazing and fantastic facilitator. Yes, I see what is happening in the chat. I see what is happening in the chat. Keep it going. That's amazing. That's fantastic. So thank you all very much. And I wish that you have a great weekend. You have a peaceful and a restful one. And we hope to see you again next week. Bye for now, everybody.